welcome everyone back to
Not Fighting.
I'm Tyler Bishop, joined alongside myself.
Your wife.
I feel like that's something people say, but I was like thinking to myself like alongside me, I guess. Yeah. Alongside self.
You're going off on a tangent, so we're just gonna stop
I
you
was
right
spiraling.
there. Yeah, we are going down a rabbit hole. So, yes, I am Jena Bishop, your wife.
3 minutes in. Yeah. And together we're the Bishops. And we talk about, I don't know why I'm describing the podcast, like we're a billion episodes in. No, it's the end of 2020. And the end of 2020 is weird, just like the beginning of I guess.
The beginning was normal.
Yeah.
For like 2 months.
Yeah.
We were normal.
We were just talking about today, like, you know, it's weird thinking back. We were talking about like some fights and different stuff that were cool. And it's like easy to forget that we had like a couple months that weren't like 2020 pandemic weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was basically my birthday, which is end of February, is like I feel the last like normal part of
I forgot about
2020.
That actually. Yeah, because it was a big party. We had a bunch of friends from jiu-jitsu there, and it was really fun. And I thought like a precursor to like, oh, cool.
It's going to be a great year.
Well, we like rented this space and I was like, oh, this is really great. We could rent spaces for other stuff. We could probably just rent spaces all the time. Have people over to watch fights. Nope. Guess what? You get no more of people. Like the restriction.
No more gatherings.
Yeah. It's weird, but it makes like kind of looking back on this year, especially, I guess, nuanced.
It's so weird how this year, and I know everybody has the same feeling. It's been because we've talked to so many people, but like this year is such a blur in a way that it's, you know, time passes so fast, and I think like I feel like as you get older, like the years, like the days, like everything seems to like go by quickly. But this year, it's like, what happened? Like what? Like we were in March and we were shut down, and then it's like it's December and it's Christmas and we're shut down again, but we were never really open, and all this weirdness happened.
And it's Christmas, but like, don't you dare go around your family.
Yes, don't be around people.
You murderer. But that's we
got a vaccine, but you still gotta not see people.
No, but the thing that you mentioned that I thought was like actually really interesting was you mentioned like getting older and like, you know, time going by faster and different things like that. I think that's super correct. Like it's funny. I used to think that my memory was like this I had a better memory than most people, but I look back on different years of our life together, and it's like you'll say something to me like, oh, well, that wasn't the same year, or that actually was, you know, after this or that. And I'm always like, oh yeah, she's right. And it's weird how you just kind of like stuff kind of gets lumped together. Yeah. This year's weird in that like I'll never lump together, you know, 2020 with like your birthday where everybody's like hanging out or around a lot of people with like, oh yeah, that was also the same year that for my birthday, like,
we were stuck inside.
I went for a run by myself.
What did we do on your birthday?
On my birthday, we didn't do anything on my birthday, but we went to Joshua Tree, actually with two friends, which was cool. But I think that that's something that a lot of people did was, you know, you can't really travel outside of the country. And
I feel like this was the year of like Zion National Park. Like everybody I know went to Zion and Tulum.
Yeah, Zion National Park was like something
maybe that was like a West Coast thing, but like
probably,
that's for sure where everybody went.
Yeah, because it's just far away enough from the West Coast where it's like you're not going to a California National Park if you live in California.
Yeah.
Which California has amazing national parks.
Yeah, because they closed most of the national parks in California. True. And Utah was like open. So that's why Zion became that popular place.
Yeah. But I've also heard that it's really cool.
I mean, it's dope. Like for sure.
I mean, we're going there.
Yeah, we're going to go there. Maybe New Year's Eve?
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. That's kind of the...
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's like 2 weeks away.
Well, and that's the thing about 2020, right? Is that it's been that year where anybody asks you about plans at this point now, you feel
we're planning on going to St. Louis on Wednesday, but like it still feels like, well, we'll see what happens.
We can't publish this episode till Wednesday, otherwise Newsom's going to send the police after us for non-essential travel. But
well, he might be recalled by then.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's a weird year.
It's very weird.
Not trying to take,
but especially for sports in all sports, really, truly. And then for the sports that we're involved in, jiu-jitsu, and we're fans of MMA, and I'm transitioning into fighting MMA. So 2020 did some weird stuff, but that's like it's very odd because one thing that's really funny to me about this is like I think combat sports in general are some of the most like close quarters like things that you can do where it's like if we're worried about touching someone and like social distancing and
the
that
last
kind of
thing we should get to do again.
But it was the first sport to come back, which is funny to me because all of the people that were training, yes, it's just, okay, I'm training, let's say I'm training for an MMA fight because that was like, the UFC was the first thing back on the map, really. And so I'm training for an MMA fight, but it's like, okay, I have this closed off thing where they kind of like created the bubble before the other things did.
They invented it.
Yeah. And so I think it's just funny because you there's no way to stay safe in the way that the government would like us to.
Well, I mean, I think
practice
just
your sport and practice it all.
The kind that science supports as well, where it's just like if you're going to be in very close contact, literally physically touching someone for any length of time, it doesn't matter how something is transmitted, you're probably going to like expose yourself to that.
Yeah.
So like combat sports in of itself, it's like there's no well, maybe we could make it safer. They could wear masks. And
no, because then they can't breathe.
But even beyond that, it's like you really think that like, well, they would have gotten infected if it wasn't for that mask whenever he was laying on top of him, breathing into his face.
The mask probably wasn't like, compromised in any way throughout that session.
I thought about this a lot with like when they were talking about in the NFL, like maybe making them wear like face shields or something that so they couldn't like breathe on each other. It's like you're talking about a dude that literally is going to like put his hand up, blow a snot rocket out of his nose in between plays because he can't breathe, get up, grab a football that everyone's touching, and then run with it, and then in running with it, take that hand that he just blew a snot rocket out of his nose with and stiff arm another player. And it's like you're going to think for 1 second that like them not breathing on each other is going to like create some other version of safety.
For sure.
You remember the IBJJF's like guidelines for like stuff at the start?
For gyms reopening?
Yeah.
Which was bold and insane in their part. Like, why does the IBJJF need to post rules or guidelines for gyms to reopen? Because number one, like they're not even like a governing body of the sport of jiu-jitsu. Number two, like you have nothing to do with the health and state, like in I guess national regulations of any gym. So like you just have I don't know why they did that.
It doesn't make any sense.
You're not like the CDC. You're not any kind of like authority on the matter.
No, and like
you have no control.
How many
over
gyms
any of it.
were sitting around like, I'd like to reopen if just somebody would give us
I know. I wish somebody would give out.
And then
guidelines.
the IBJJF is like, you know what? We just adapted literally all the CDC stuff and just were like, here's what that would look like in a jiu-jitsu academy. It's like a first grade question. It's like, here's a worksheet. Now, imagine that underwater.
I feel like it's plagiarism. Really? Truly? It was plagiarism on their part? But
I'm taking a bold stance, making a lot of enemies right now.
Well, I'm not fighting in IBJJF right now.
Yeah. You're like that person that like all of a sudden it's like now you're free and you're like now I'm writing a book.
It's like everybody's
Melania Trump.
Everybody's dream of like getting fired and being able to like go off on your boss and be like, well, screw you and I hated this place and I hated you and you suck and all this kind of stuff. Like
and your
that
ranking
kind of thing,
system
blow it up.
Your ranking system is an immigration scam. That's not an allegation. It's alleged. Jokingly alleged. I don't know if that's an allegation that's out there.
No. I just think that I'm not trying to blow anything up, but I did get that opportunity to like really speak my piece in a work scenario once. That was great.
Yeah, you did do that once at your job, right?
Yeah. Do we need to talk about it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, court order says we can't, right?
I mean, I got fired, so I had the opportunity, but I got fired for being sassy.
Yeah,
That's truly something that my boss would tell me. He was just not a good person. He was just not a good person, and I hated that job anyway. And
do you remember what we did immediately afterwards?
No, he fired me because I asked for time off so that we could go on our vacation for our 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, we went to Jamaica.
And he was telling me I couldn't, and I said, "Well, I'm going anyway." I was just telling you I'm leaving. I wasn't telling you asking. And it wasn't a scenario where it's like, oh, like you have to be here because nobody else was or is going to be here then, and nobody else can manage your job for the week. I don't need a paid vacation. I'm just leaving.
You want to keep going into it, or?
That's all. We can move forward because it's bringing up bad memories.
But at the start, that was the thing that I thought was so funny. Is like the IBJJF way late on everything, and they're just like, oh, here's some guidelines. But I think it's really easy. We were talking about earlier, just kind of like the divide in time. But like the IBJJF in of itself, it's like they're in this weird position where it's like they issue those guidelines and then they're hosting tournaments in like Alabama and stuff.
In the middle of nowhere.
And Florida, mainly just so that they can host a tournament, right?
Yeah.
And it's like literally a tournament.
Which honestly, I didn't think that they were gonna the jiu-jitsu tournaments would be back this year.
No, me neither.
Given everything, and I don't know that it was done in a way that made sense.
Well, I mean, realistically, given what we know and just given the practice of health and safety that we've adopted as a country, jiu-jitsu tournaments are impossible. They're just not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. There's no other I guess there's a couple people tried concerts this year after the fact, and they tried to do a bunch of stuff, but I mean, it's just mass gatherings are just designed to not be the safest thing in terms of spreading a virus.
Yeah, and I think that's why we saw all of the pro events kind of be kind of what was highlighted this year.
Yeah.
More so than just about anything because,
they're the only game in town for competition jiu-jitsu at that point, you know? And we didn't see a lot of tournaments, but we did get to see because of people like Fight to Win in Third Coast and Flow Grappling's white labeled Who's Number One.
Mm-hmm.
You did get to see a lot of really good matchups and people rise to prominence, but it's easy to forget that at the beginning of the year we did have a real Europeans IBJJF European Championship
and a few. I mean, there was several opens that had happened too, but as far as major events, the Europeans happen. That was this year. That was 2020.
Because I remember people wondering if the IBJJF was going to shut down the PAN. And, knowing what we know now, it's, laughable to think that anybody would have thought that we were going to have a PAN championship in March.
I remember telling everybody that, getting ready for it, I kind of, had this, weird feeling. But then also seeing everything that was going on and leading up to it, I'm just I just have this feeling I'm not competing. I'm getting ready for this, but I'm not competing. And then, sure enough, the week before, nope, it's not happening. It's canceled. Everything's, and then during that time, well, now we're on full lockdown.
And I think it's so appropriate and kind of funny in a weird way of that being the one that I think everybody was just kind of oh, we can't just sneak this one in,
Yeah.
Before the virus is fully here or whatever. And I think there's a certain amount of coming to grips with what's going on.
I think that's funny. Before the virus is really here, because I think that's probably how people thought about it. We can just do this.
Ain't everybody got it yet.
It's still in China, right? And just in Europe. It's not in the U.S. fully or New York. So everybody that's traveling from New York to the West Coast, it should be fine.
People that ride the subway. We got a dog howling in the background.
I don't know why.
Most of them probably can't hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I think it's funny that when the IBJJF finally decided they were going to host tournaments again, they're like, guess what, everybody? It's Pan in like October.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so weird.
And by the way, it's in Florida. And then also if you're from any other part of the world, like...
You can't come because U.S. has a travel ban.
So... The Pan, you know, but we did have a real Europeans, and I thought that, you know, if we were going to look at like the best competition of 2020 in terms of tournaments,
yeah,
there's really no other.
There's not even another option.
No,
it was the Europeans
because all the rest we've talked about this in previous podcasts. Like they have to have an asterisk.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah,
it has to. I mean, like, we're not going to debate it. It's called not fighting for a reason.
Yeah. We agree.
We're just like on the same page. We like look at each other, and it's like, but it's like we could write a thesis on the things that we think and say to each other. Just sometimes whenever we know that we agree, we're just on that same page.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all the rest of the competitions this year, they just didn't have the same level, the number of competitors, it was just all the weird factors in. But Europeans is unadulterated in that way. Yeah. And because of that, I think, you know, Felipe Andrew, who has lots of standout performances this year, like, you know, in Third Coast and Fight to Win and stuff like that this year, he won the Europeans. People... I think would be like it was this year. He beat Keenan and got him in a triangle in the finals. Yeah,
that was awesome.
Which he didn't win his weight class though, right?
Yeah.
He's really remarkable in that way. Where
wait, was that? Am I confusing Pan-Ams in that?
Oh yeah, maybe I am too. I can't remember if he won both his weight and the open class.
All I know is he's triangled some pretty some of the top competitors here this year in 2020.
I mean, to me, what's impressive is that he's able to triangle people that are literally shaped like triangles, like
the Hulk.
The Hulk. That dude is a triangle.
Yes, he is. No neck. How do you triangle somebody with no neck?
Dude, when he showed up for ADCC, I was like. His ears like
attached to his shoulders.
How do those work? Like they need to be in your brain has to touch to your ears, right?
What?
Like so you can hear. Your brain is like what interprets audio.
Okay, but I'm confused.
But his ears are in his neck.
Yeah. But like my fingers are not in my head, and my brain like is basically what helps operate those. I like how you reasoned with me
like I was a child there. And it's not derogatory at all towards Lucas by any stretch. We go out of our way to try to make sure that we don't do that on this show. My point is just like that dude's yoked and he's got a super thick neck, and those guys traditionally super hard to triangle, and no-gi of all things too.
Yeah, which Felipe hates.
Yeah, he doesn't like no-gi apparently. Yes. And so I thought that was a standout performance. So if you were to say like what people really stood out in 2020, he sticks out because that tournament sticks out as like pretty much the best tournament of the year.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm actually trying to remember of like other things that had happened in that tournament, and I don't know. It feels like 5 years ago, so I can't remember. Yeah.
I mean, if people knew then what they know now, like, can you imagine how big that tournament would have been? How many people, like, sit it out?
If you knew, that was the only tournament that was going to be, like...
Available
for the whole year. You would have been there. We would have been there.
Maybe. I don't know.
I probably would have gone. I would have.
I mean, yeah, I would have gone to Europe. Yeah.
But I would have fought.
I mean, honestly, now it's like one of those things like knowing then what we know now. It's like we would have been doing nothing but traveling for 2 months, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But,
maybe I actually wouldn't have competed in that. We would have gone to Bali.
And stayed.
Yeah.
You can't kick us out.
But what about our puppies?
We don't want to get sick.
What about our puppies?
But yeah, so Cash has a human boy soul.
He does.
But I think just kind of going back to like knowing then what we know now, like it prevents this like rise up of like talent. You know, we were talking about this earlier. Like if you don't have a Pan, you don't have that guy that just got his black belt that like was hungry and just had the right day and beat a bunch of the veterans, and like that's what he needed maybe to build, start building off of and all.
But we did see that.
Yeah, we saw it in a different way, and that's what I mean is like we've got some standout people from 2020.
Yeah, like Roberto Jimenez, like man, like he had a year, like this is his first year at Black, and he was beating everybody. And I mean, how much money did he win at Third Coast?
I think he won
at least two of their like things. All right.
This thing's we cut this thing up a little bit.
Because we've been having some technical difficulties for some reason.
Couple system failures, 1 or 9.
I don't know what's going on.
But you mentioned Roberto Jimenez is like a standout competitor. And I think one of the things that I think about specifically with him is that he embodies like what you normally see in like a young black belt. And that like he's had his ups and downs where winning 2 Third Coast tournaments, lots of money, all that kind of stuff, but also like fighting a couple times and like having some like upsetting losses and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. But I mean, that's like part of it, right? That's part of the game. That's part of like being a young black belt. You like learning those things. And I think it's very hard to just always be on the top. I think that's something that is nearly impossible to do, especially when you're competing at that much. Because something that I think about with a lot of the other guys where it's like, you think about like the Mendes brothers and some of the other like top level competitors where it's like, do they ever lose? Is it even possible for them to lose? They're so good. And I still think like that's probably like how we feel about it. But I don't also think that they were competing as much as often in ways that you're challenging yourself like outside of weight classes, outside of like your preferred skill set, like aka no gi versus gi, or like rule sets that are different. It's like we think of those guys competing in IBJJF rule set at the major tournaments, right? Yeah. Like not like all these other things. Like they're not competing in opens, they're not competing in other things like outside of like going to like Japan or wherever and like just smoking everybody over there. Like.
But that's the thing is that I think like in general, just as people, we want to see those invincible people, right? We're like,
for sure.
We want to imagine there's some guy out there that's like just the best, like he was born the best.
But I think you want them to be invincible so that you have somebody to like cheer against them, like for like I want them to see them lose too. Not always, but like there's always going to be the person that's like, man, they're the best ever, but like I would love to see them lose, like because that would be like the craziest upset of all time,
And I think that like you see that in MMA to a certain extent, where we're talking. I guess just because we're talking about people that seem unbeatable, like Khabib, like
Khabib is like very
maybe retired. Like I think at this point, it's fair to say that like
I mean, he told his mother, so he's pretty much a man of his word, and we talked about that, but. I mean, I feel like people are trying to pressure him to come out of it for sure. Because he's in his prime right now, and he's one of the best to do it.
And he lost his father this year. I mean, like, it was a really... 2020 for somebody like him is particularly, like, I guess, bittersweet in a lot of ways. And, in that same time period, you have the rise and fall of Justin Gaethje, who went from... basically demolishing Tony Ferguson in a way that people didn't expect or think was possible. And then being like, well, with his wrestling pedigree, like he might be the guy. He might be he's not perfect.
And then looking like he never wrestled a day in his life against Khabib.
Oh my God. That was crazy. I mean, it speaks to how, I think in that match more than any others, I can like see and appreciate just how skilled that guy is.
Yes.
Knowing Gaethje and just how he was able to kind of like manipulate his skills use his skills against him, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's like, because Gaethje looked just easily beaten in that fight, which I don't know.
It's how you would expect if you were to go watch a pro MMA training practice, how the guys that were like seasoned veterans would treat the guys that were new.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that he's bad or doesn't have potential. It's just like he's not on that guy's level yet. Like maybe he'll get there eventually.
I think it's just so funny too, because it's like almost a disappointment in the way that turned out, because you think about it and you're like, man, like there was so much hype, and you're like, after the Gaethje Ferguson fight, you're like, man, he can do it. Like, I think that he's got a chance. Like, he really does. You know, is Khabib going to be able to like do what he's done to everyone else to this guy? Because he's a good wrestler. You know, he's got this pedigree, and then it just is like, no,
no, not close.
Not close at all.
I think the thing that's tough for people too is like, you want to see Khabib have that hard fight where you're like, oh, that one was close. That one, you got to see where he was at, like where his limit is there. But every time you see him blow through somebody, you're like, that's one wasted. We wanted to see how good he was. We wanted to see if he was like, we wanted to test him, and you made it too easy. You weren't the one. And I think people thought Tony Ferguson was the one for a long time. And Tony Ferguson, like, you know,
I mean, his last 2 fights, it's like, I think he might have been the easiest.
But that's a problem with Tony Ferguson in this situation, though, because I think that's a really, like, that's not fair.
No,
at all.
Exactly. Like, I agree. Like, Tony and Khabib, like, should have fought, like, I don't know how many years ago. Like, it seems like for maybe 20 years ago, judging how 2020 has been. But I'm just saying, like, when Tony was in his prime, the best he's been. I don't know what that was or when that was, but I don't think that that's now. And
Tony Ferguson is the kind of guy, classic meme. Tony Ferguson is the kind of guy that peaks when he's 50. It's like he comes back at 50. Just for some reason now he's the best he's ever been. Anyways.
Yeah.
In reality, it was probably several years ago.
That's not true, but you know.
But I mean, like, if you look at his last couple fights, just on the ground, doesn't look like, you know, this idea that he was some kind of special grappler.
Yeah. Like, I think he had a funky style, and I think that caught a lot of people off guard. But if you're a seasoned and you're a very talented grappler, like, that doesn't work. Yeah. You know?
I mean, is there anybody that is like, well, I would have liked to see how him and Khabib went? It's like,
not anymore.
We know how they went.
Yeah.
Faster than Gaethje.
Yep.
That's how I think it goes.
Yeah. Although I don't know, because he has this weird. I think Khabib would have done the same thing how he did with Gaethje. He's like, he didn't want to break his arm because he knew it wouldn't tap in front of his parents, so he would do the same thing of just put Tony to sleep, so that he has no opportunity to, like, hurt himself.
Tony Ferguson is the type of guy that goes unconscious with his eyes open, for sure, right?
Yes, for sure. It's so creepy. You were just like making creepy eyes.
He's just out and he winks. And you're like, he's out though, but he winked.
His body's limp, but his eyes are very much moving.
He is that guy. But, you know, it's funny because it's like, you know, we don't know if we'll ever see Khabib fight again. But, you know, another really great representative of jiu-jitsu and grappling, which we've talked about this before, doesn't really get his due in the jiu-jitsu community, is Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, like he's been around for a while. And it's funny because the jiu-jitsu community is always like with the MMA people, like, you know, Jacare or Damian Maia or whatever, they're all, and Mackenzie Dern, like everybody in the jiu-jitsu community is like hyping these people because they're like, oh, they, you know,
one of us.
They're like, yeah, they're one of us, you know. But Oliveira is like not somebody who is like I mean, he has the most submission.
That's what I was
like
getting
wins
to. Yeah.
In the UFC, and that's something that when you and I both heard that stat, we're like, really? Like, huh? Okay. But I guess he's just been in the game for a minute, and like
he's got a crazy streak going, and his grappling is really good. I mean, like,
insane. And we saw that recently.
Made Tony Ferguson look like a blue belt fighting a black belt.
Yes. Yeah.
And but he's a guy that I look at and I'm like, as much of a surging 2020 as he's had, because I think he submitted I think Anthony Pettis early this year before the shutdown, maybe.
I can't remember.
Can't remember exactly. But the thing that I find interesting about him is I don't want to see him fight Khabib.
I do. I would like to.
Do you think that he is going to be able to out-grapple Khabib?
No. But I hope that he can.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I hope that he can make it like competitive. And I think that he might have a better chance of making it competitive than a lot of these other guys.
It's true. I mean, I think the fact that he has that many submissions speaks a lot to his like his spirit and also his skills. You know, like going for submissions is like that's built into you.
Yes.
You know, like and so like I think that he's dangerous for that reason. But I mean, I keep going back to the Edson Barboza fight with Khabib, where it's like that dude's so explosive and he's a black belt, and you just watch like him be overwhelmed, and I could just see Khabib just not giving. I mean, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, like I always told people it's not chess, because chess means I move, you move, but it's more like pool, where it's like if you get it off the break, then you're running the table.
Just saying, Tyler's never played chess.
I've played chess.
Yeah. But have you?
I mean, I know how chess works. I know which way the horsey goes. In an L. Bishops go sideways.
More than I know.
Bishops, we sideways. You think we're going to go straight? We can't.
Nope. Sideways.
From the Midwest to California. Sideways. Actually, that's...
not going north or south.
No, that's still the way the little castles move. Side to side. We'd be more like...
What are the little castles?
The castles.
I don't know what any of the things
there's the ones that look like
I think
towers.
we're getting off topic.
Yeah. Yeah, we got off topic. No, but like just like pool where you run the table on somebody, and I think that that's what happens with Khabib with someone like Charles, is that he overwhelms him, and then he just never really gets a chance to do his thing. It seems like that's what happens to guys when they fight him. It's like I never really got a chance.
I want you to be so wrong on this. I want you to be wrong. I don't know if we'll ever find out, but like I want that to be not the truth.
I think of all the fights, Dana White's not going to make that one, but I do think that
no, because I feel
I would cheer for Charles Oliveira on that.
Do you think the only thing that Khabib comes back for is like a fight with GSP?
Yes.
Yeah,
I do think that.
But I don't know that like St. Pierre, like that's one of those fights. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a really, really dope fight. And if you look at GSP, man, like he's still in great shape, but he's not fighting, and I don't think he's in his prime. So if they were both in their prime, that'd be dope to see. But I don't really know that I want to see it, because I honestly like I'm such a St. Pierre fan. Like I have been forever, and so for me, I'm like I don't want to see that his legacy like tainted by that.
I don't want to see St. Pierre the way that we all saw Roy Jones recently.
Homie's got gray hair now.
Yeah.
He just like debuted.
He grew his hair out. He's having a midlife crisis.
I don't want to see that St. Pierre. Yeah, I don't want to see that guy fight Khabib in his prime.
I want to see. I was not impressed by your performance. I want to see that George.
Yep.
That was the best George.
Yes, that was the best George.
Politely rude. Most Canadian.
Like a French Canadian would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a great balance there. Yeah.
The only way you can handle.
The nuance. My wife. The thing that I think is really interesting just in general about that is just that, like, Khabib doesn't have anything to prove. You know, like, he's going to make a lot of money, fights Conor again, but, you know, it's not... I don't care for him to fight Conor. Like,
no,
why? That fight had a weird negative energy around it that I just didn't. It wasn't fun to watch.
No.
Either way. Yeah. But I mean, I think him and St. Pierre, it's like that'd be really cool, and I think he'd come out. But I think Khabib is the best he's ever been, and St. Pierre, like I just don't know that you could argue that George is better than he's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't know. And
I mean, in
he's
the
only
fight,
aged, and the
Bisping fight, the outcome was great, but it wasn't like I was watching him. I was like, wow, George is better than ever.
Yeah, like it's not like he's this like the crazy athlete that you had seen him be before. I don't know.
But we were talking about when we were kind of like going over things before the podcast. We were talking about MMA, and you know, we were thinking, like, what were the best fights of 2020? And both are surprises. And one, you were surprised because you were like, that one happened in 2020? Like, call back to what we were talking about in the beginning. But
it's such a blur. Yeah, the Joanna and
Wiley Zhang.
Yeah, Wiley Zhang. Yeah, fight. Like, what? That happened this year?
Yeah. And you forgot.
But that fight was insane.
It was insane. I'm a sucker for any fight where somebody gets, like, a cut or, like, a bruise or, like, get something injured and they keep fighting through because it's like the storyline the rest of the way. You're like watching, you're like, their arm's broken,
look at
right?
their heart. They're so like, yeah, it's crazy, but like, man, they're still fighting through.
But I've never seen, I mean, in the history of boxing, MMA, I can't think
somebody's head swell up like that.
Yes. I was thinking like there's a knockout, and I can't remember who got the knockout, but I think it might have been Lennox Lewis against Hassan Rahman. But he had this giant contusion on his head. It's like an internet meme, but it literally looks like he's got ostrich egg underneath his head. I mean, Joanna, it's like tenfold that. She looks like.
But it wasn't just one like knot on her head. Like you would get like that, like one swelling. It was her whole head swelled up. Her whole forehead. She looked like she turned into an alien.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like an alien. She looked like the alien from American Dad.
Yes. Yeah. Poor girl.
I know.
Feel bad.
I know. And to fight through that.
But she kept fighting. Like there was like no quit. And you can argue like, oh, her corner should have thrown in the towel or whatever. And I know why they wouldn't, because like as a competitor, if you're still fighting, and I chose that, like if she said something in between rounds, then that made you think like, okay, fight's off. But like if she's just like, okay, I'm still in it. She seems coherent. She seems like whatever. As a competitor, I'd be mad if you threw in the towel on me, and like I'm still game to fight.
She won the 5th round of that fight.
Yeah, I mean, she still did really, really good. Like very injured
to the point to where I remember reading articles where people were like, if you take away the fact that you're looking at somebody that's clearly damaged, from the fight, she won that fight.
Both of the girls were damaged in that fight.
Oh,
but it's just insane what her forehead looked like.
Yeah, Joanna, that's like once in a lifetime type of stuff that you see. But that was in 2020. And then in the same token, to kind of bookend 2020, we a couple weeks ago saw the Delson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno fight. Man,
such a great fight.
No one cared about 125. Mighty Mouse is one of those guys that people are always like, oh, he's underrated, but people didn't want to watch him. And then Cejudo came along and like,
he's just a nerd. Like, he's just a nerd.
He's a nerd. He made no one care. And like he won belts at 2 weight classes and then he was retired. And literally even Dana White, like whenever he did, Dana White was like, cool.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. Title fight, I guess.
Nobody tried to like convince him to stay or whatever, because it's just like, okay, whatever, dude. Like, and it's not taking away from like his talent, because like he definitely got really like he was probably the best I'd ever seen him like in the last couple of fights.
Dominic Cruz?
Yeah,
I thought he was gonna lose that fight, and he looked good.
Looked really good, better than I'd ever seen him, because I
finally to the point where I'm like, I want to see this guy against more guys.
Yeah. And
then he's like, I retired. I was like, that's the most Henry Cejudo thing you could do.
I'm like, that's fine.
The second I'm interested, you do the opposite.
Yes, like a nerd would.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but Figueiredo and Moreno, I thought was like sick fight where you got to see like a little bit of everything and a lot of heart. It was awesome.
No, that fight was insane because it was, and it winds up being a majority draw. And I remember like arguing with some people like, oh, it shouldn't have been a draw. Like, but in most cases, like really truly it was only a draw because there was a point deduction, right? Like that's kind of how I look at it from the judge's standpoint. Like it was only a draw. And that fight can go either way. You can make an argument for either guy in that fight. And it's just one of those things where it's like a draw feels like to me, it felt like the only way that outcome is justified.
We said it even
that's
before
like the only
it
justified thing.
Like this fight, if it just goes to decision, like I'm cool with it being a draw.
And you never want to see a draw. I never am like, a draw is fine. Like, no. There should be a winner and a loser, but that fight, I'm like, I don't know, man.
I don't think either of them has deserved it. And in the same way, like time, they've both earned the win.
Yeah. No one has earned a loss. Both have earned the victory.
Yeah. It's just a rare thing. You don't normally see that. You see the opposite. And
which is why it's like, please run that back like as soon as possible.
And I think that's what's cool is like when you look at those lighter weight classes, it's like I don't know what happens at 125 pounds or even the women's like 115 moving forward, but like those great fights make you interested in the weight class. And in the same token, like we saw kind of the opposite at heavyweight where you're kind of watching like a a closing out where you're like, I really don't know what to pay attention to now, because Miocic and Cormier, and this was in August because it felt like a century ago, they fought out their trilogy and Miocic won. Yeah. And it was like, you felt like you maybe weren't watching the best of either of them.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm still kind of like left like, well, it was a trilogy, but like the first two were better. It's like all trilogies, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, realistically, it had a very Arlovsky Sylvia finish to their a very
that's
small niche number. He's gonna get that one.
Yeah.
But so heavyweight, just it's like, what happens next? Does Stipe fight again? Does he fight Francis? Is John Jones gonna actually fight at heavyweight? Like, I don't know.
Here's the thing. I don't care to watch John Jones fight ever again. I just don't care about that guy at all. I think he's a terrible human. He's a cheater. So, like, whatever you do doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things he's done really
poorly.
Also,
homie's looking old AF right now.
Well, I mean, you know, in his last two fights, they were in both
He's
cases.
He's not old.
In both cases, I was like, you could make an argument that he lost those fights. And he fought Dominic Reyes this year. And even though Reyes has, you know, like, he's got a recent loss to Jan.
Yeah, but I thought Reyes won that fight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, like, you know, Reyes was having a breakout year up until recently. And I thought he beat Jan in that fight.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate he got knocked out in the next fight.
Yeah. And I think that that's what people will remember, and they'll just write it off for John. But, you know, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think people have noticed the kind of steady decline that John Jones has been through. Because even before that, fighting Anthony Smith going to decision, you know, he was dominant in that fight, but it wasn't.
When you get popped for steroids, like, on multiple occasions, and then also drug use, and like live that kind of lifestyle, it's like you can only make excuses that you took a tainted supplement so many times, you know? And then, so it's like, then you actually like have to like kind of back off on all those, like, you know, PEDs and such. And so then, and you're aging at the same time. So are we ever going to see like the same kind of like level of skill that he was fighting at those?
No, you won't. And that's the thing. And I think that's why it's really interesting to see somebody that's surging in 2020, like Israel Adesanya, newly crowned purple belt, Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
But like, he's on kind of a collision path with John. They've been talking back and forth. They're different sizes, but that might happen. But he's very, very skilled and technical, and that's what he's known for, besides being a great athlete. John Jones, on the other hand, known for what? Not
athleticism.
Being athletic, confident, and creative / wild.
Yeah.
Now, one of those three things, like, you need.
Yes.
And the other two, anybody on the planet could have.
Yeah.
But
I think Adesanya has all of those characteristics and like real, like just.
But technique too.
Super technical. Yeah.
Being known for it. Like John Jones is not to say he's not technical or not skilled. It's just saying like that's not what he's known for. It's like being this great Muay Thai fighter or this great jiu-jitsu like artist or whatever. It's like no, he's a freak athlete and he's very confident, which it's a huge advantage.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then he's creative. Like, he's not afraid to take risks and stuff. But here's the thing. When your athletic ability declines, guess what? You'll be surprised at the fewer and fewer risks that you take.
Yeah, you take less risks because your confidence is shaking a little bit because you know that you can't, like, recover as easily. Hashtag same brain.
Yeah, we on the same page. And, I think that's one of the interesting things about 2020 as well is, you and I have had a chance to spend a lot time together, from training in the garage to sitting down and deciding that, like maybe you were going to try to punch and kick people for a change.
Well, just enough to get them to the ground.
And so 2020 will forever be the year that you decided you were going to do MMA, and we'll see in 2021 if it's
2020. Like, it took a freaking pandemic for me to convince Tyler that fighting MMA was like a good option for me. Yeah. So thank you, coronavirus. No.
It is one of those things that I am sort of proud of it in the respect that it's like, I feel a certain type of way about like trying to get my wife to like do MMA. Because I don't want that. But at the same time, like, I think it speaks to the fact that it's like, I love you and I just want to see you do whatever makes you happy. And, I can tell it's something you really want to do. And I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't think you're going to be great at it. I mean, just naturally, but even watching your progress, I think you're going to be great. And so 2021, that's something I'm excited to see, and I know our listeners will be as well.
Yeah.
So
stay tuned, because we'll probably have news on like me actually fighting. And I know a lot of people, when I talked about making the transition into MMA, everybody's like, oh, well, what promotion are you fighting and when are you fighting, and all these other questions. And I'm like, yo, like, slow your roll. Like, I just
it's in
decided.
the UFC. It's for the title immediately. Duh. But I don't know when. We're figuring it out.
But that's definitely one thing that it's like, I just started and I was like, okay, I'm gonna change my focus, switch gears, and it's been a lot of fun to do that and like kind of just be a student and learning, like being a beginner again in some areas of the game, which is awesome. And I think that I will have information soon on when I will be fighting and what organization and how that's going to play out. So,
something to follow along with in 2021.
Yeah.
And as you're getting ready for next year, realize you're going to be able to get back doing jiu-jitsu. You're going to want a fresh looking gear. You're going to go to fujisports.com. Okay. Hold up. Write it down.
They got a ton of new stuff, especially women's skis, which is nice because I feel like sometimes that gets overlooked, but Fuji's doing it right by them girls.
And you like quality, and you're going to check out there at fujisports.com, and you're going to enter Bishop at checkout, and you're going to save 20%. And you're like, 20%? That doesn't seem right. I know. 20%.
Crazy.
Yeah,
right? Crazy.
And then Keon. Keon is someone that we found organically on our own, just trying to find essential amino acids originally.
Yeah.
And a supplement company that I really like their stuff.
Yeah.
I do a ton of research on vitamins, minerals, like pretty much anything that you can take as a supplement. I'm naturally kind of skeptical. And EAAs were something specifically that I had uncovered for you, because I was like, all these dudes are always taking the BCAAs, and I'm reading these research studies that are, talking more about like EAAs being something that's far more beneficial.
Yeah, you need a complete like amino profile for like real recovery and like just to fuel your workouts. And then also, there's a lot more benefits than just like, if you, let's say you're not a competitor, you don't train like and work out all the time, there's like sleep benefits and just other like just general health benefits in taking these EAAs. And what's awesome about the Keon ones is that there's like not any added like preservatives or sugar, so it's like keto friendly. It's friendly for if you're doing a fasting diet, like intermittent fasting and things like that. So I really, really like their product. I feel like there's a difference. It's higher quality, and like it's something that like I've taken a lot of supplements and a lot of like protein supplements, especially like we all like have done our protein shakes and stuff like that, and I always hated doing that. And so the Keon aminos is like a substitute for all of that stuff, and it actually is beneficial for your body.
Yeah, and no one there has ever beat a nun or anything like a lot of other companies out there. I won't say any names. It's the kind of thing you can get away with saying. You paint an artificial villain. It's marketing anyways. Yeah. So we want to thank everyone for watching the show.
Marketing.
For everyone that the show started at the start of the pandemic, and something we'd been planning for a long time, and we're really happy we had a chance to do it.
Yeah.
And really thankful for all of you that are listening and watching along. And hopefully you will enjoy it enough to share it with others, and if so,
and always like we always like tell like our friends and close people, but reach out to us. Like you can like easiest way is probably to find like reach out to us via Instagram, and I'm at Jena Bishop BJJ, is at Tyler Bishop BJJ, and let us know what you want to hear us talk about, or things like if you want us have more guests, like we've talked about having like more guests on the show and things like, or if like you have critiques about stuff like, oh, y'all are boring, like whatever. I'm not going to tell anybody that, and I'll probably block you afterward, but that's fine.
Creepy dude send you messages like, get that guy out of the show. Less of that guy.
No. That guy.
More of your feed.
Creepy. Anyway, yes, we'd love feedback. Make sure you like us, subscribe on whatever platform that you are listening on or watching, which would be YouTube.
Or Braille, if you found a way to get the podcast in Braille.
He's so weird. But yeah, thank you guys for listening and hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.